You can keep doing what you're doing, and you'll keep getting what you're getting, and you can keep selling stuff at low margin costs, or you can finally step away from your business for one day, okay, one day, and see if there isn't some other growth opportunity or revenue opportunity or market opportunity that you've spent your whole life working on. Not that I'm emotional about this, Susan, but that you spent your whole life working on, that you can pull away for a day and see if there might be somebody out there. And the whole point of this exercise, in part, is that you don't have to do it all. You find licensees, you find joint venture partners. There are even people out there that will help you find licensees or joint venture partners. You don't have to drop everything you're doing. You just have to step away from your business. The classic, can't see the forest because you're too close to the trees. I mean, there is a component of that there.
There is. But is there a first step, a Susan or someone like her can take in terms of, giving you that, enthusiasm or optimism, say, hey, we've got something here that says this is not, because I know, what Susan's going through. Everyone is, like you said, they're on that wheel and they're running on it.
Listen, I'm not attacking Susan. I totally
But sometimes the first step sort of, you go there and then it opens the door and you see the possibilities.
I want her to hear from me on this webcast that it's okay to take a day. And you know what? You can even combine it with other things. Look, summer's coming up soon. Although it's quite cold here in Washington still. But summer's coming up soon, and there's no prettier place in the country to be than northern Minnesota. Take your employees away for a one-day retreat. Put this topic on the retreat, and you'll be surprised what happens. I mean, taking your employees away for a retreat is a good thing to do once in a while anyway, and maybe you make the focus of the retreat. Last year it was customer service. This year we're going to bring in an outside speaker for our retreat on intellectual property leveraging, or we're going to talk about it, or we're going to play this webcast. I mean, look, you've subscribed to the webcast. You can play this webcast for your employees at the retreat and see what they think. Say, where are our hidden assets? Because one thing I will promise you, and I will promise you looking directly at the camera, there are hidden assets in your company. Your job is to find them. We are sitting in a studio of a company that is growing like crazy, and we are staring out, not just into the cameras, but into shelves and shelves and shelves of content. This company's hidden intellectual asset is all of the content it's created over time. And the founder of the company knows it, and everyone in this building knows it. And it's taking the time for a day to talk about how do we leverage that content. And every company goes through it. Every company goes through it, and almost every company has it. And I don't care, no matter what business you're in, there's some hidden asset. There's some Picasso in your basement. But you got to go down into the basement and poke around. And that does take a day, Susan, and I know time is valuable, but I promise you, you will not regret the exercise. Yeah.
What is the average cost of a patent? Right.
Well, it depends.
I mean, I know trademarks, we've done that. That's pretty easy. I've done that online myself.
Exactly. Patents vary because patents are sometimes not filed just sort of one at a time. They're filed in families
and for
different applications. The best place to start is with a patent search, and the patent search with some analysis might cost you $3,000 to $5,000. But what that will give you is a feel for what your permitted scope of claims will be. Because if there's prior art out there that already covers 3 or 4 of the things that you thought you invented, then your patent claims are going to be pretty narrow, and that might be $3,000 to $5,000 pretty well spent as a result.
Okay, just real quickly, what do you got there? Because I did also want to touch on, before the end of the show, a little bit about protecting your IP. A lot of people are going global. Doing business overseas, and I think we could talk about that. Thankfully, there's a lot of good resources out there where we can send people hidden resources.
I want to
do another show. Let me guess. You want to do another show?
I went almost 45 minutes without pushing a topic to another.
No, you did. You did once.
But the whole global IP issue and going global and global expansion really is a show to itself. But we can touch on it towards the end.
Yeah, why don't we do that? Okay. And it's great because we can send folks to the SPTO website, stuff page.
The PowerPoint that we're working from.
All right, go ahead.
The two things I want to drive home, I guess, I lied. 3 things is one, the evolving view towards these assets in corporate America, because this is not just Susan in St. Paul tearing her hair out saying, how do I find the time? I believe that this is part of a bigger movement in corporate America and across the globe that's beginning to recognize that these are the premier business growth drivers, and that Susan is dying a slow death as a company if she doesn't step off the wheel once in a while and look at these things and say, what can I do to build my business around these assets? Because the big guys are doing it. The big guys are starting to look at these assets as the premier business assets to grow from. And it doesn't happen overnight. It happens gradually, but you start to see it. You start to see new titles popping up on the org chart. You start to see more interaction and less silos between bigger companies, between the engineering department, the marketing department. So I just wanted to get that point across. I guess the other thing I wanted to talk a bit about before we move to some global stuff is the importance of intellectual asset management. You know, if you think about it this way, right? Let's say, and I don't want to pick on Susan anymore, so let me go back to picking on Don from Birmingham. And I apologize to both of you in advance. Let's say Don sells widgets, okay? It would be unthinkable, right, Don? You can agree with me. It would be unthinkable for you to have no systems for managing your widgets, right? That's your inventory. I mean, what business these days does not have sophisticated software systems or some software managing the inflow and outflow of their widgets? And now we say, but these intangible assets are an equally important asset to to his physical widgets, and what systems can be put in place to better manage the intangible assets in our business. And intellectual asset management, put it on your radar screen, put it on your to-do list. It's not something, Susan, has to be done tomorrow, but it's something that has to be thought about over time as we continue to evolve in a service-driven, internet-driven, global-driven economy. More and more companies are earning the bulk of their income by the leveraging of their intellectual assets. Look at SBEC. Look at We Inc. I mean, your intellectual assets are your context and knowledge of what's going on in the Hill, your mailing lists and member lists, and the collective brain power of your members, your weekly newsletters, which are fantastic. That's all intellectual capital, right? And you're leveraging that to build a wonderful organization. So I think everybody's got to get on the bandwagon on this a little bit, or you run the risk of being left behind. The last quick topic I wanted to cover, and we can, again, you're going to kick me under the table for the third time, have a separate show on this, but to understand that these assets don't exist in some, strategic nirvana. Ultimately, they need to be turned, and I think Susan and Don would agree, they need to be turned into revenue streams. So franchising and licensing and joint ventures and alliances and co-branding and cross-branding and cross-licensing and technology consortiums and technology transfer and overseas licensing and dealerships. These are all strategies, if you think about them, and I could go on naming names, but they're all strategies to help you leverage your assets. And so protecting them is part one. But then turning them into revenue streams and turning them into market opportunities, that's the really critical part, too, that will ultimately build shareholder value and get you on somebody's radar screen in terms of getting bought one day. I mean, more and more the M&A work that I do, the negotiations are over not the widgets, they're over the intangible assets.
Sure.
And those are the more complex negotiations.
Right.
But guess what? Those are also the ones where the big value comes out.
Absolutely.
So, all right, I'm done ranting.
Right.
But I really feel strongly about this issue. As you know, it's an issue of very deep passion of mine, and I just feel like we need to carry the flag for the small and mid-sized companies across the country and get them thinking the way the big guys think on this set of issues. It'll make our country stronger, make our economy stronger, and it'll certainly make small business stronger. Can you imagine the collective hidden assets of all the small firms in this nation? I'm breaking into a sweat thinking about it. I mean, that excites me. Well, already the small, mid-size sector drives innovation, more patents per employee. I mean, all the statistics. Look at the makeup of our economy. Look at the makeup of your members. I mean, if you looked over your membership list and said one question, how many of these companies earn their income directly or indirectly from their intellectual capital these days? It's a big number. Right. It's a very big number. Right. Yeah. We have very little tolerance for commodity-driven society. We've even gone about branding our water. branding our coffee. I mean, everything's branded in some fashion, leveraging off trademarks and the power of trademarks to sell more products.
Right. I read a quote, and I forgot where I read it from, but it was someone who created more patents than anyone else. They said, well, what made you, made money and created more businesses? Because what do you credit to your success? He goes, I had the best patent attorney. That's what that's what he said.
Not going to get any objections from Gary Hoffman or any of the guys at Dickstein in the patent department on that one.
Oh, so, that's right, yeah. A couple of resources that I can think of that will really help small firms in particular. One is, if you are a firm that's even thinking about protecting your IP or why you should protect your IP, the USPTO on the World Wide Web, uspto.gov. Particularly its stopfakes.gov section, which is the whole government's effort to stop counterfeiting and pirating and all that other good stuff. They have a lot of good, a good Q&A section on why you should protect your intellectual property, the process, how you go about doing it. A very good piece of great stuff, that a business owner should look into.
Already paid for with your tax dollars.
That's it. So it's free.
Right.
And then next, there's another on the stopfakes.gov website. They have tremendous toolkits about, if you do business in India or China or Russia or any of these, Brazil or any of these other toolkits for protecting your IP in these countries, what your resources are from the U.S. government, the commercial service offices, how you should go about protecting your IP in that country, because, when you do it in the U.S., it's U.S. only.
And here's one other thing that, we are running close on time, and we've got some wrap-up things we want to cover, but one area we didn't get to cover today, so it might be a future show, there's that fourth kick, is the whole impact of these issues on the Internet. We're living, copyright law has always been the technology workhorse. Copyright law had to stick with the printing press and TV,
well, we
radio.
did, we did get that one question.
Yeah.
We should really address that because we said we're going to answer. The question was from one of our viewers was, what is your legal opinion, or is there a legal opinion on social networking sites and copyright and how they mash up various video or protected rights and. I think we're still in a very complex period, and those things are working their way through the courts as we speak. Is that right?
Well, yeah. Think of it a little bit like the turtle and the hare. Okay, the hare is technology, and the turtle is copyright law. And I don't mean that in a disparaging way.
Yeah.
But what happens is the hare gets 20 feet out ahead of the turtle, and then the turtle eventually catches up. You think about what happened with Napster and downloading music and how technology got ahead.
Or VCRs
by 5 years.
and Hollywood.
VCRs and Hollywood.
Yeah.
I mean, this has been going on now for years and years and years. And so, YouTube and MySpace and the social networking sites are the new Internet issue based 5 years ago when we all talked about Napster and downloading music. And now, of course, the pipes are big enough. We download movies in seconds at a time if you want to. And those technologies are getting ahead. So it could be months or years before we have a clear answer on this show.
Or you might be to another issue. This might be outdated or...
But that's what happens is the technology is moving so fast that the copyright law has become the workhorse.
Well, the issues are coming quicker, too.
Right. And the funny story I usually tell is before the printing press, which is what started all of this, there wasn't much need for copyright law, right? Because until you could replicate, there was no need.
Unless you had your team of writers that could,
your scribe did three books, 3 copies of your book. You were the best-selling book in the land. All 3 kings had a copy. But now we have so many tools for replication from the printing press all the way forward to some of the peer-to-peer